Good God. After Keiichi's fight in this episode, and the fight at the end of the first arc, I think instead of Go, they should have called this Higurashi Blood. How can people even bleed that much? Hello everyone, this is Shaggy with the last episode of the Curse Deceiving chapter of Higurashi Gou, and the last episode of the first part, or season, of the show. It has been a wild ride, and I thought I knew what surprise was. After the end of the very first episode, then the end of every arc, I've been blindsided and confused and amazed at how different yet similar this series has been from its predecessor. I know everything's been very puzzling for new fans that started watching without knowing the secrets of Hinamizawa. That's one of the reasons I started making my videos. But I can confidently say that for returning fans, things have largely been just as perplexing, especially after episode 13. We may get answers in part 2, and I really hope we do, but for now, we just have to scratch our heads and ask, what the hell was that all about? And I'm here to try to help with that, without giving away anything that hasn't already been revealed within Go. But with this episode, I'm not quite sure what to say, so please excuse me if this feels clumsy. I'm going to try to just say what pops into my head. There may not be a great order to it. First, they saved Sadako. I wish I could say that more excitedly, but due to the way the episode ended, the gang saving Sadako doesn't feel like much of a victory. This episode did two things. It showcased what is perhaps the major theme of Higurashi, that when people trust each other, are honest with one another, and reach out for help when they need it, incredible things can be accomplished. The human spirit, filled with positivity, can overcome harsh realities and terrible predicaments. The second thing the episode did was throw all of that in the trash and reveal that one person acting in a negative manner can ruin everything people have striven for. The reveal that Oishi murdered most of the cast is a punch to the gut. Not just because the characters we like have died, killed by someone thought to be an ally, but because the past 4 episodes have been rendered pointless. All that fighting, all that struggling, all the pain and heartache, they were paid off when Sadako was finally saved. But it was for nothing. She died, Mion and Shion died, Rika died. It's just Keiichi and Reina left to pick up the pieces of their lives. They got their happy lives back, but it lasted so briefly. Was this really better than Shion or Keiichi killing Teppei and then disappearing? Higurashi has kept redefining horror. At the beginning, it was paranoia, being murdered by your friends and murdering your friends. Then it was a group, large and more powerful than you, targeting you and perhaps killing you and everyone you love. Finally, it was abuse, physical and emotional, and the powerlessness that an onlooker may feel. We saw it all, and we thought we knew how bad things could be. But then we learned that true horror, the stuff that we really fear, is random. It's chaotic, senseless, something we can't fight against because not only do we have no control over the situation, we can't even prepare for it, before or during. In a moment, our whole world comes crashing down, and things are lost, never to be returned. I have never felt Higurashi to be topical. It's never felt like it's addressed issues that are of our time. This is partly because the series takes place in 1983. It is inherently not topical. But also because the terror in the show has been either very general, something everybody can relate to, like paranoia, or very specific, something that no one will ever face, like your best friend trying to kill you. Higurashi mixes the two together very well, creating fear that feels real but is fantastical enough to never make you forget you're watching an anime. Sometimes a degree of fantasy, a lack of truth, is necessary to entertain the audience, and Higurashi has always been great at that. But the ending of this arc, it felt real. And it felt like this time. It was some real 2020 shit. It was hard to watch, and it bothered me. Hell, if I was 10 years younger, it probably would have given me a nightmare or two, and I feel no shame in saying that. A gunman shooting your friends? Instant murder? That's terrifying. And we've seen it all too recently here in the US, and all too often. I don't necessarily think that the creators of this show tried to make a statement on the violence we've seen over the past year. I think they simply ratcheted up the horror, going beyond what fans have seen previously. But the intent doesn't matter. We've heard over and over about senseless gun violence, and because of that, you as viewers no doubt got quite a shock at this ending. Intentional or not, the reveal hit hard. It accomplished what it set out to do even better than the creators could have hoped. So, what does the ending mean in terms of the show itself? Oishi, who seemed like a good guy, did something unforgivable. What could his motives have been? He seemed antagonistic throughout the series, often implying that somebody in the cast was a criminal in some way. But in this episode, he definitely seemed to actually be a good guy. At the protest, it at first looked like he was against the Hinamizawa group, but he was actually protecting them. He didn't use force to disperse the crowd like other officers would have done. He bought time for the group, knowing that the Sonozaki assemblymen would show up, and he then threw the chief of police under the bus. Oishi upheld the law, but because his ideas of justice didn't line up with that of his superiors, he bent the rules ever so slightly, allowing the Hinamizawa group to succeed. Without Oishi, Sadako probably wouldn't have been saved that day. But then he killed her. Why? What possible reason could he have had for firing into a crowd of people? Even supposing that Mion, Shion, Rika, and Sadako were not his only victims, and he could have killed a lot more people than just those 4, how could he decide that shooting a bunch of people was worth doing? Did he lose his mind? Was he hallucinating? Or was it just as senseless as it often is in real life? Moving beyond the ending, because we have to, the episode has some more things worth noting. Like when it was shown that CWS refused to step in and save Sadako, not because they genuinely believed that there was no abuse, but because the director, or whatever you call that person in charge, felt that he would lose face by reversing CWS's decision. By going back to Sadako's house, the organization would be saying that they were wrong in not taking the case more seriously. By admitting fault, the director could be seen as weak or unfit to do his job. So, instead of caring about a child's life, the director cared about how others may see him, and whether others respected him or not. Despicable. Another thing worth mentioning is how Higurashi tackles the idea of community, a large part of Japanese culture, and the show features both the positive and negative aspects of it. In Hinamizawa, the villagers take care of each other. Even if one villager doesn't know another, they are still expected to help them if help is needed. In return, the villagers will be helped if they ever need it. Instead of a give and take system, it's a village-wide connection, a bond that everyone can share in. An exception to this is Teppei, who shuns that bond. Teppei is a villain, not just because of his abuse of Sadako, but also because he refuses to be an actual part of the village. Totally selfish, he won't ever help anyone. He is a disturbance, an enemy to the community, instead of a part of it. But this bond doesn't only produce happy results. The belief that the village as a whole needed to despise the Hojo family was one of the obstacles Keiichi needed to overcome to help Sadako. And the belief continued long past the death of Sadako's parents, who were the only ones that actually supported the dam project in the family, because of the fear of going against the village. Even though all of the villagers knew the pain Sadako was suffering and wanted to help her, they resisted out of fear of being cast out themselves. The bond that helps the villagers can also hurt them by being removed from it. Being shunned in a small village like Hinamizawa would have disastrous effects and probably force a family to move. the mean looks, the complete lack of empathy and care, Hinamizawa's sense of community not only protects the villagers from harm, it induces a peaceful and happy life. Everybody getting along means there is less stress, but if everyone around you hates you, then you have nothing but stress, and the wall of contempt can be impenetrable. Even if you want to talk things over and make amends, you may not be able to, especially when all of the power is held by one person, like Oryo Sonozaki, who may refuse to listen to you simply to keep from potentially seeming weak. A tight sense of community is a double-edged sword, and Higurashi displays this masterfully. It is something to strive for, but also something to fear. One more thing I noticed that I want to talk about is what happened after Sadako was saved, when she called Keiichi. In that scene, they could have shown what happened, Sadako screaming for help and Oishi fighting Teppei, and it would have been thrilling to see. But revealing everything through a phone call allowed us to put ourselves in Keiichi's shoes. He wasn't there for that, he's just had to wait for news. When Sadako calls and explains everything, we get the same relief he does, from the tension felt since watching Oishi take CWS to Sadako's house. We don't get the intense rescue, but instead the very human feeling of a phone call ensuring that our friend was saved. This again puts us in Keiichi's place, so we identify with him and see him as a proxy for us, the viewer. All of Gou has been told from Keiichi's perspective. It's clearly been intentional, especially since Keiichi has been the only person that survived every arc. We need to feel what Keiichi feels, experience what he experiences. He is us and we are him. Maybe that's just the way the creators decided to tell the story, or maybe it's to enhance the terror we feel. When Keiichi is the proxy for the viewer, we focus on him and fear what may happen to him, or what he may be unable to prevent. And a lot of bad stuff has been happening to and around him. It's rough being Keiichi, so that means it's rough being the viewer too. Well, I think I have finally run out of things to say, at least at the moment. The only other thing that pops into my head is how some of the characters implied that Sadako was gay for Rika when they met up at the festival, but there isn't a whole lot to discuss there. Though I would love to read that alternate universe manga. Sadako and Rika, together in high school, secretly dating because it's the 90s and there's bigotry everywhere. But that won't happen. Maybe in doujinshis. Yeah, that's all I can think to talk about for now. And I hate to say it, but this will probably be my last Higurashi Gou video for a while. I've loved making a video about every episode, but after doing it for 3 months, I am a bit burnt out. I need time to play video games and watch other anime. Now, that doesn't mean that this is the last video I'll make about the series, just the last one focused on a single episode. I am still in love with Higurashi Gou after all, and I'm still going to be watching every new episode as it airs. But maybe I'll do a video after each arc, or at worst, one single video at the end of the series. It really depends on how much energy and free time I have, and how badly I want to talk about this phenomenal series. So this won't be the last time I talk about Higurashi Gou, it just might be a while before I make something new. I want to thank everyone who's watched my videos, everyone who's subscribed since I started making them, and everyone who's watched this video all the way to the end. I do these because I like doing them, I like sharing my thoughts, but I also love the thought of these videos making other people happy, whether it's 100 people or just a dozen, or even just one. Thank you again for all the support I've gotten. And again, you can find me on Twitter @ShaggyJeebus, and you can subscribe to this channel to learn about new videos I make, and to help the channel grow. With that, this is goodbye for now. But remember, trust your friends, be honest with them, and you too can make a miracle happen. And if you don't, you'll still be fine. I mean, you have an ancient god that can reset time, right? Doesn't everyone? See ya.